Hello, welcome to Access Table Configuration. In this lesson, we're going to take a look at the types of tables we have, how the tables work, the types of table views we have, which are designed in datasheet. We'll take a quick look at data types and what they are. We'll look at the field properties. Under the field properties, we'll look at general and lookup tab. Then we'll wrap up with the property sheet for the table design. So generally, tables are the basic building blocks of a relation database, and Access is a relation database. So tables are where our records are stored and then fetched into the forms or reports or whichever service that will be using them for processing. So it is really important that the tables are structured very well. Basically, there are three types of tables. We have the data table, which is used to store data, primarily used to store data. We also have the linking or the junction table, which is used to link two or more tables together. Basically, this come in to create many-to-many relationships. We also have the lookup table. The lookup table basically contain a list of limited options which you can look up to. Maybe say you have a table to contain a list of payment options. So you can have credit card, Visa, whatsoever, credit card, cash, in kind, whatever option that you have. So lookup tables are for those. So now tables, like I said, they are the building blocks of database, relation database, and they allow us to communicate between the tables themselves and other entities or objects of our system. So what happens is this: when you have a table, inside the table you have what we call the rows and the columns, or the fields and the records. So the fields allows you to establish that kind of system that every record in the table should have a particular property. So maybe you have a table to represent a person object, or let's say a person or a group of cars or food items. So tables are just there to represent something that is in existence already. So let's take that you are having a system about employees. So there will be a table about employees, and it represents the features or properties of employees. So you can have the employees' first and last names, as well as their date of birth, their salary, addresses, and something like that. So every employee should have a first and last name, address, date of birth. So these properties are what we call the fields. So when you are about to create a field, you should put in one or two checks in place. But before that, let's look at what data types are before we create fields. Now, data types are simply constraints or rules that you give to your fields, telling a system that this particular field or this particular object or this particular entity or this, let's use field for databases. I was moving to programming. So this particular field is going to store a particular kind of data which is of this type, and these are the kind of operations you can perform upon it. These are the restrictions upon it, and this is what you are expected to do. So ahead of time, this is what we are expecting. So data types, they set up the constraints for a particular field and tell the system that this is what should be done, this is how it's going to be done, and these are the things you can do with this particular field. Those are data types. So for instance, to create a field in Access, you will have to click on where it says click to add. When you click, notice that you have a list of data types that you can choose from. You have short text, number, currency, date time, yes, no, lookup, relationships, among others. Basically, the short text is for things like the first and last name and any other text that you want to input into the field. Any text or any number or any character which doesn't have any calculations in it, I advise you to use short text if it's not going to be more than 255 characters. But if you are going to have numbers which will be performing calculations later on, you should be using numbers. If you are storing monetary values, you should be using currency. So we'll go deep down, but first we're going to create two fields here. This field, this ID field, when you open an Access database, you are given a temporary table like this, and then this ID field is there. Automatically becomes our primary key, which we'll not look at, but we'll just explain to you what primary keys are later on. So is here, you can delete it if you want, you can just delete it, but we'll leave it there. Now I'll click on this and choose short text. Now I'm telling the system that this field is going to contain short text. Now I can give it a name. I'm going to call it first name. Now whatever first name you type is expected to be a short text, and it can be numbers, it can be punctuations, it can be character, alphabets, it doesn't matter. Now I'll click on this again to add another one, which is going to be your last name. So now we have 2 fields, but we have 3 more fields to go. So right now we are currently looking at our table in datasheet view. Datasheet simply means it looks like a table. It's in a datasheet. So you have the rows and columns given to you. So the columns are these ones. By database we call them fields, or some call them attributes. So it doesn't matter. But these are the fields record. Every field make up a complete record. Now we will switch on to design view, where we have a lot of power over our data, and then how we control and constrain the data that will be um, fed into the system. Now before that, let me mention that most of the options available to you in design view are also available to you in datasheet view. You have validation, formatting, properties, amongst others. But I love to design in design view, and you find yourself doing so, and there are a whole ton of options there which are not available in datasheet view. So I'll click here, and then you see we're currently in design datasheet view. I'll move down to design view and click. Now before that, I have to save my table, and I'm going to give it employees. So you can notice that it is saved as employees here. You equally see the update here, employees. Now you see that we have 3 fields like before. We have the ID, we have the first and last names. The ID is auto number. That means that automatically it will be adding one to yourself. It's automatically generated. You don't take care of its maintenance. It's generated for you. It's what we call a surrogate key. It's just there for you to work with. So it's a primary key of type surrogate. It's just there, the numbers that generated for you, just to make sure the system works. So a primary key allows your records to be unique from each other record. So it doesn't matter if you have John Doe, John as first name and Doe as last name for first employee. Then maybe you get to the 20th employee. He's also called John Doe. The idea will be the one to separate the two of them to avoid ambiguity. Now we're in design view. In design view, you can see that whenever I click on a particular field that contains data type and field name, you have the properties available to us here. You also have the description, data type, and the field name. Data type are the ones we were looking at earlier on. They're the same ones here. The description simply talks about you giving an optional description to your fields. It doesn't have any effects on the operation of your fields. It's just for you, and it also appears on the status bar when you're using it. So you can always the first name of the employee, and then you can say the last name of the employee. So it doesn't really have any operational effects on your fields here. Now below we have the field properties. We have the general and the lookup. Notice that when I click on ID, the properties here are different from when I click on either first or last name. Notice that the ID, because it's auto number, we have the field size, which is long integer. If I click, you see byte, you see replications, but once it's auto number, you know see those, but number will be different. We also have increment and other stuff. Now when I click on last name, we have a bunch. The field size is in how many characters should we allow. The number of characters are, maybe you have the punctuations, the alphanumeric characters, the space, they're all characters. So how many of them should we allow? And the maximum is 255. So you can't have more than 255 characters in this particular field. If you need more than that, you would have to go in for a different data type, which is the long text. In Access 2010 below, it's called the memo. But basically I use this when I'm having addresses or asking for feedback from user, which you wouldn't know how many characters to be using. But you can always put in restrictions. So now in the last name section, I'm going to have the field size. I'm going to limit it to 100 characters only, so that the user can have only up to 100 characters. The reason sometimes is that you might want to save space or little bytes on your system. If your database is going to have about 1,000 or 1,000,000 employees stored in it, every single byte counts. Every single byte that you conserve counts. So sometimes you don't want to leave the 255, because if the user types in John, this is JONHN, so which is about 4 characters. Now the remaining 251, access to just find some kind of dummy data and fill it in. So you see that you think you've typed in John, but access has filled it in with extra information, and that makes your system grow in size. So it's better to just restrict it to a number that you think you can capture. And the format also talks about what format, but because we are looking at text right now, we don't see any meaningful format here. We'll see them later on. Now, input marks talk about what patterns should we apply for all fields in this particular section. Now, you'll notice that whenever I click on each of these properties, the description of the property appears here. So if I click on format, you notice that it's a display layout, input marks is a pattern. So your description for each of the field properties here is shown here. Now the caption, what caption does is, I can come in here because I want to save programming space, time for myself. I can just say LN for last name, so that when I'm programming, things become easier for me. When I'm writing query, SQL queries, it becomes easier for me to just type it in instead of typing in the last name and all the stuff. So I can type in LN for last name, then I come in caption here and say last name. So when I import this data or bind this table into a form, I'll be seeing the caption last name, not the field name here. Similarly, if it's going to a report or something like that, basically the caption is for display purposes, the field is for programming purposes. But if the system doesn't find a caption, it will use a field name, so you can take note of that. But the naming convention, there are names that you cannot use, or you have challenges access to one. For example, if I use something like name, access will show that this is a reserved word and it might conflict. If I also type in something like date, access will show an error here. So you might want to keep that in check. There are reserved words that you be cautious using. Now I'm going to add in my DOB, which is date of birth. I will just type in date time because I know it's date time. The date that the it was. This is also helpful if you have a team of developers, or even for yourself. Maybe in the near future you want to know what the field is storing and what the field is all about. So you find yourself putting the description here. And like I said, the description will show in your status bar when you compile your app, or when your field is clicked on in a form. You have a description shown in the status bar. So this also help your users, front end users, to know what the field is all about. So I'm going to have my address. I'm going to use long text here because it's the contact address. I'm going to have my phone. I'm going to make it short text, and I'm going to just put in something here.